Hey, I'm back. We heard that there were some people were having some issues with the audio for the Facebook live stream, so we're going to give it another shot. Again, thanks for joining us. As you know, this is the release day for our new novel, He, out today. I apologize in advance. It's on Amazon, but the paperback is still loading or something. So the ebook is out there. The paperback should be up later on today. I think I'm going to kick this off before I start answering questions by reading an excerpt from the book. And I'm going to start with the prologue, which essentially drops us into the middle of the story. So you get through the prologue, and then chapter one um, picks up the story at the beginning, and then you eventually get to the prologue. Owen Strange walked into abattoir and sniffed the air. The former slaughterhouse may have been renamed and refurbished, but it still stank of violence and agony and death. Sawdust which covered the floor swirled about his feet as he took reluctant steps forward. Paper streamers, purple and white, his school colors, hanging from the low ceiling, tickling his shoulders, felt like ghosts brushing past. Why here? He wondered again. Why was I here? Because of Rio, of course. He'd confessed his secret, and his release had unexpectedly opened a door he hadn't known he'd held the key to. Now that he was here, all he had to do was walk through it. The question was, could he? If he hadn't told Rio his secret, Rio would never have asked him to come. What more, Oren wondered, did Rio want from him? Why was he so eager to see him after all these years? Had his life not recently fallen unexpectedly apart, he wouldn't have found himself here at this reunion, ready to step through that newly opened door. Owen walked up to a table just beyond the door, where plastic encased name tags rested in alphabetical order. Oh, strange one! A voice suddenly boomed as Owen studied the display, looking for his name. The old hated moniker that so many had thought such a clever play on his name. The voice was attached to the dense, heavy body of a former athlete who had let himself go to seed, surrendering to age, gravity, and too much beer. The muscle had dissolved into fat and settled around his middle. Liddell Holloway. You look exactly the same, Liddell boomed. Still skinny as a rail. I'm sorry, Oren said. Do I know you? Immediately, the bravado left Liddell and was replaced by a kind of bitterness, for Oren had reminded him that he was no longer the star athlete, wasn't otherwise anyone worth remembering. Liddell abruptly slunk away, muttering to himself. His voice was low, but Oren heard what he said. Stuck up, citified faggot. So nothing has changed, Oren thought to himself. After their exchange, doubt assailed Oren once again and arrested his progress. He stood still, trying to adjust to the room's heat, the cigarette smoke, the cloying scent of white diamonds. Why was he here? Was he, like Jackson, just trying to rewrite his story with a different leading man and a happier ending? Then, from the center of a gaggle of twittering, giggling women wearing their Sunday best and good bras, gold crosses hanging around chicken necks, plunging and twisting between pushed up bosoms like the agony of Christ, he heard a rumble of laughter. Like the echoes of thunder up at the quarry, it went on and on. It was the most absurd sound in the world, a laugh he recognized. Rio was here as he promised he would be. Whatever else had changed about Rio, his laugh was the same. Owen found that reassuring. Now the only remaining question was, did he have the courage to step through that open door that invited like a portal into another dimension? Owen took his name tag off the table and shoved it in his pocket. And that's the end of the prologue. So I'll get into some questions. First question I had was, how long did it take to write He? So generally it takes me 9 months to a year to write a book. He was a little bit different in that that was my full-time occupation, was writing He. So I did that in a little over 6 months and then sat on it for another 6 months before we decided to publish it. I will say though that that story, the story that became He, has been floating around in my head 5 years before I sat down to write it. And part of it that was I was in the midst of writing my last book, Excellent Sons, when the idea first kind of came to me. And I can't write two books at once. I know some people can, I can't. So it sat in my head until I finished Excellent Sons, and then I sat down and started writing that. My favorite character, and then I'll read an excerpt from her, is Claude, who is MJ's mother. And she becomes the heart of the book. She really adopts Oren and Jackson and really brings to life the idea of chosen family. So she becomes a maternal figure who's driving them. She talks to them about love. She shows them this kind of, for the first time in their lives, I think this loyalty and unquestioning love. I'm going to read another excerpt. Damn, I hope I can find it. And this one, because my books talk a lot about, well, my books combine romance with history and social commentary. And in this particular element, I'm talking about society's obsession with flexing, being trendy, and consumerism, right? That whole culture of consumerism. Give me a minute while I find my place. Sorry about that. Take me longer to find than I thought. While I'm searching for that, let's see, what's the next question? Oh, who will he appeal to? So I think it has a universal appeal mostly because it talks about those common things like resilience and following your heart. But if I'm honest, I think it'll really resonate with gay men of a certain age. And by that, I mean boomers. It takes place at a time in history when things were a lot harder for us. I think anybody of my generation who's reading this will really kind of recognize themselves in their struggle. Here we go. So in this instance, so in this piece, in this excerpt I'm about to read, Claude takes Owen out to lunch. Upstairs or down, the maitre d' asked us. The restaurant, Milloway's, is famous for its rotating dining room and its sheer glass walls. The upstairs restaurant, 700 feet above the ground, boasts a 360-degree view of the city below. It is as legendary for its view as it is for inducing motion sickness and vertigo in intrepid would-be diners that shoot at high speed 50 stories up in a glass-walled elevator that climbs the side of the building in a transparent shaft. There, those who survive the elevator ride intact only to develop motion sickness once they are seated in the ceaselessly rotating dining. Downstairs, I said before Claude could respond. I see, the maitre d' said dismissively, branding us cowards despite Claude's outfit that was anything but cowardly. He directed us to the elevator behind him on his right. As we stepped onto the elevator, Claude looked at me in surprise. Are you afraid of heights? She asked. No, I said. I'm afraid of dying in an elevator traveling at the speed of light to an unnecessary height in pursuit of a $40 cheeseburger. And that ends that chapter. One of the other questions I got was, oh, somebody wished me happy birthday. Thank you so much. Today is my birthday. Fun fact, it's also National Coming Out Day. So yes, my birthday is National Coming Out Day. Go figure. I like to think they named it on this date after me. My wedding anniversary, both of them actually, are also on the anniversary of Stonewall. Could I be any gayer? And by the way, I married the same guy twice. Once it wasn't legal, the second time it was. That's why we have two dates. Um, how would I describe he in three words? I think I would describe it as a radiant love story. And when I say radiant, I don't necessarily mean the Webster dictionary version definition. I mean radiant in the way that F. Scott Fitzgerald used it, meaning something like highly sought after, very exciting but fleeting. And I think that's kind of the core of the book, right? There's this intense emotion, right? How does that get sustained, you know? So for me, it's a radiant love story. Okay, thanks so much for joining me for this. Sorry about the glitch for the first one. And we'll be releasing the book trailer for He sometime today, so watch out for that. Pick up a copy of the book. It's at Amazon, like I said. You can get it at your local bookstore. Once you read it, do let me know what you think of it. I writing is very solitary, and I love to hear people's feedback once they've read the story. Thanks so much, guys. See ya.